Welcome back to 7th grade Mustache. This is a test. This is a test of your resolve, of your tactical prowess, of how you fend off attacks from every possible angle in your life. What am I talking about? Once upon a time, you didn't have to be concerned about people snooping in every part of your life, motivated by money or greed or revenge or any of these things. So now we live in a world where you have all these points of attack where people can enter your private life and cause complete mayhem in your financial sector, in your personal life, in your business life, everywhere. In your personal assets, everything can be fucked with. So we can start by talking about electronic vulnerabilities. And, you can start on the outside of the house. So starting on the outside of the house, when I first came down to Atlanta, I started to see cameras on the interstate. Oh, shit. Because at that time, this is mid-90s. So then at that time, you're seeing the first cameras pop up on the interstate. So you got to understand that this was brand new. So then you have people who are not used to seeing cameras recording everything.
Yeah.
So what was happening is the surveillance state was starting to rise, but it didn't have the Patriot Act yet to solidify its existence. So you had pushback from people saying that this is infringing on our privacy. So long story short, the cameras on the highway are still there. They have remained to this day. Now, the motivation, there's always a double-edged sword for these types of technologies. They'll say, oh, well, it's to help people who have broken down on the interstate. Okay, cool. All right. But it's also recording people's license plate tags, right? The license plate tags.
It's following your movements.
What happened after that is the Olympics came to Atlanta. The Olympics always brings new technology wherever it goes. And so these cameras were installed before 1996 when the Olympics were coming to town. Now, at that same time, they cleaned up the streets. They got all the homeless people away from any place that's going to be visible to these foreigners. The same way Gavin Newsom got rid of all the homeless people and cleaned up the streets of San Francisco when Big Daddy China came to town. So this was happening simultaneously while the internet was exploding. And with the reach of all this information, you then had people who were buying things online, online commerce.
Yeah,
and then people using credit cards online. You saw the beginning of eBay like around 95, 96.
Yeah, PayPal Mafia.
And then PayPal came right after the beginning of eBay. So then you begin to see people using PayPal with eBay transactions, and there was a lot of scammers. There's always scammers out there, and I understand all that. But
when it's initial, when it starts, yeah.
But here's the deal, because it's the Wild Wild West. So then you start seeing people banking online, and I would always laugh at that shit. I'm like, dude, there's no fucking way I'm going to put my information online for people to see, because the security was not strong enough to protect people really from getting their bank accounts hacked. And it happened, and it continued to happen, and you would always hear about, there was some government personnel who had this laptop with all these 500,000 American Social Security numbers on there.
Social Security numbers.
Then with all this stuff going online, it became vulnerable to attack or capture. And it did many times. And then what they would do is they would blame the attack or the mishap on a contractor. They allow third-party contractors to do this so they can't take the blame for it. So it's a win for them. And if there is any monetary punishment issued by a government body or a court, they pass that on to the customers, and the customers end up paying for that. So there's no slap on the wrist for these people. They get a slap on the wrist and it's nothing serious. This will continue until people start getting real jail time for being so lax and lackadaisical with people's personal information. So then, 5 years later, you have September 11th happen, and the Patriot Act, which was sitting on the shelf, already written. Pull it out 2 weeks later, said, we wrote this in 2 weeks. Everybody sign it. You're not a patriot if you don't sign this. Oh, well, you gaslighting people. So you got gaslighting and bold lies being told about the Patriot Act.
The name alone invokes some kind of feeling like, oh, Patriot Act.
So up until that point, the most that could happen to you would be if somebody had gotten your credit card information or stolen your identity through going through your mail or capturing you dialing this sonically into a phone, and they're tapping the line and they're listening to the keystrokes of the buttons you press and the tones associated with those keystrokes, so they know, okay, he's dialing 457, okay, and they just write it down.
Yeah.
You have people in New York City who would sit by bridges, and the bridge and tunnel people would come into town, and these guys would have the dish microphone with headphones sitting in the car on the side of the road, and they would catch people's cell phone conversations, and they would get people giving their credit card information and vital information over the phone, and they would record it. So then they would then have a way to steal this person's information, and it's an entire industry. But the problem is that these vulnerabilities just only grew over time. With this Patriot Act, you had this paranoia. America had become so paranoid in the wake of 9/11. This was all done by design, because you can't have the surveillance state take hold unless you have massive paranoia and lots of fear. You have to create the environment for that. And September 11th created the perfect environment for that, for when people were snitching on their neighbors. Hey, but in many ways that weren't justified.
Yeah, hold it. The whole thing is either the government has to beat you over the head and spend a bunch of money, resources, and time, like enforcing shit, where you just got tanks in the street, all kinds of crazy shit, or they let you volunteer. When you hear the Patriot Act, we volunteered a lot of our rights away. We gave because it's a fight on terrorism. Nigga, ain't that the same shit G.I. Joe said about Cobra? They're sitting here and hitting you with certain words. But the other deep thing that you touched on a bunch of deep shit, but let's go back to what you said. Whenever the Olympics comes to town, they bring new technology. But guess what? They leave that technology. So when the Olympics go away, that Olympic Village is still sitting there with all that technology, everything from cameras to new kind of scanners to face recognition software way back then. And then on top of that, you had the bomber in Atlanta. Remember when the security guard catches it, finds it, and they try to fight? Yeah. So I ain't saying that he was a plant, but when this shit happens, and then all of a sudden we all get in line. When these events take place, whatever they are, then we get in line, and we give our rights away, or we want more of this, more of that. And again, you were saying some deep shit. Back in the day, they had to steal your social and shit. Now they can go online and get the shit. But also, what you were talking about, we kept hearing these different stories about, like you said, a lost laptop with a bunch of socials on it, that kind of shit. Those were convenient stories, because these motherfuckers have been gathering data for years, and a lot of these third-party contractors were doing shit with our information they weren't supposed to. So like, okay, we see that they're doing shit, so let's come up with a story. And then they leak the story to the media, and all of a sudden now we understand. Oh, okay, so yeah, I was a victim of. And you see this shit now when TJ Maxx got hacked. 30,000 or 40, a million people had their information stolen from TJ Maxx and Marshalls, and you keep seeing that shit. And like I said, when you were talking about a lot of shit, but I'm trying to touch on all of it. We've become accustomed to hearing those stories with no explanation.
All right.
You don't get up in arms about it.
We're starting from the outside of the house, and then we're coming to the inside of the house. So I mentioned how you had these cameras on the interstate, and then they began to put them on traffic lights, and you would have traffic cameras, which people had disputed so many times in court. In some municipalities throughout the usage of those traffic cameras, even though those traffic cameras are still there. Those traffic cameras are still there, but you don't see the flash of the camera go off anymore, even though it's still recording. Now, well, listen. All right, if you're walking down the street and you see the traffic camera, turn and look up at the street lamps. The street lamps have cameras and microphones in them in some cities, and they're recording information. You have to, in many instances, you have to let people know that they're being recorded, and you have to give them the permission to record you. But these people are just doing it anyway. So what they do is they have this mentality where they they commit the crime first and they ask for forgiveness later.
Yes.
And that's some very evil Vaticana type of shit. Now you turn and you go onto one of the side streets, and you're now on the side street where you see a bunch of homes. You don't realize you're still on camera because the doorbell cameras on the front doors of all those houses you're passing by can see you walking by. You're being recorded. You're on camera. So from the interstate to the main roads to the side streets, you are being recorded. You're being recorded the entire time. What's funny is that there are crimes that are committed, and you would say, oh, well, they got all these cameras. Why don't they just go and use them? They don't want you to know that they can go and get all that. So they don't say that they are going and getting all this stuff, but they're collecting all this stuff. Law enforcement collects all that visual information and audio information when they need to. If they want to go and subpoena all the information or go and get the information, they have all these different options. So what I'm doing is I'm presenting to you all these different ways that your privacy has been infringed upon. So now we've made it to the front door. And what is it at the front door? Well, the car is parked right there. Your car is parked right there near the front door. You're thinking, oh, well, my car is perfectly fine. Nope, because your car key remote. With that, a person with a dish microphone can record the sound of you unlocking the car. The sound of you unlocking the car and record the frequency and then use that frequency to commandeer your vehicle without asking. If your car is newer than 2012, it has an internal computer that can be hacked. Your steering can be hacked. They can shut down and start your engine, control your brakes, your doors, your wipers, and open and close your trunk. Now, let's go specifically into car hacking for a moment, because there was an instance where somebody died from this because he wrote an article in Rolling Stone. He was a journalist, and they said, oh, this guy was on drugs, and they took control of his car, and he just ran it into a tree, doing 100 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour traffic zone.
But he wrote that article years ago for Rolling Stone. What year was that?
Oh, he died the same year.
Yeah. But that's some crazy shit.
So check it out. So there's different ways that your car can be hacked. So your car can be hacked through, one, the wireless connections. Cars with wireless connectivity, such as Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, or cellular networks, can be exploited to gain access to the systems. Hackers can intercept or manipulate signals, allowing them to remotely access and control certain functions. Number two, onboard diagnostic ports. OBD2 port, used for diagnostics and maintenance, can be exploited if not properly secured. Hackers can gain access to the vehicle's computer through this port, allowing them to remotely control certain functions. So this is a physical port where they have to get in the car and plug in something to get to the controls. Now, number three, key fob signal interception. Like I just mentioned, hackers can intercept and manipulate the signals sent by the key fob, allowing them to unlock doors, start the engine, or control the vehicle remotely. Now, number four, software vulnerabilities. Cars rely heavily on software, and vulnerabilities in these systems can be exploited by hackers. By identifying and exploiting these vulnerabilities, hackers can gain remote access to the vehicle systems.
Look, they can replace your computer with theirs, and have a bug already in there. It's so many ways. Oh God!
Check it out. The reporter who was killed, he had I think it was a 2009 or 2010 Mercedes Benz, and so they were able to take control of this Mercedes Benz and hack this car. Another example was in 2015. There was a Jeep Cherokee. Charlie Miller and Chris Vasilek demonstrated the ability to remotely hack a Jeep Cherokee systems, including the transmissions, brakes, and radio. They exploited a vulnerability in the vehicle's Uconnect infotainment system, which was connected to the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's a hard drive.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
They loaded that shit up.
Right. So then there were recalls in 2015 where Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, FCA, issued a recall over 1.4 million vehicles due to remote hacking vulnerability. The exploit allowed hackers to remotely control certain functions, including brakes and transmission.
Hey, see, you old enough. Do you remember in 2001, 2002, when they first introduced the drive-by-wire? That's when Toyota introduced where the accelerator didn't go right to the engine. So basically, you would step on it, and there was a wire that would send a signal, and then the car would accelerate. And so they started having those accelerators sticking. And what it was the
Yeah.
mechanism. You remember this. And then, so there's this one dude, the third, fourth one in Cali that went through it, couldn't find out he was a scam artist, and it didn't really happen. Because they checked the computer like, oh, no, you didn't have a problem. But he had heard about the other people having that issue where the accelerator was sticking because it was new technology. Like currently, when you step on the accelerator, it's a wire that goes to part of the engine. It's a cord, it's a cable. But then when you drive by wire, it's an electronic wire that sends a signal that causes. So when that technology first came out, people were having issues. And so like when Roscoe was telling you that can be exploited, it's just odd that the only ones having car accidents were reporters. Just hear me out. Like there's some new technology, and all of a sudden, any reporter that was putting out articles that talked about the CIA, that talked about they were having these amazing car accidents. And so what happens is you become conditioned to hear about it. Then all of a sudden, they throw a few other people out there, like, oh man. And what they're doing is they're making it sound like, oh man, that's terrible. That's a terrible accident. Back to outside the house. I told you the story when it happened. My daughter had a car accident where this a lady ran the red light and hit her. So we're trying to get the footage. They would not give us the footage. So I contacted the local police department. They wouldn't give it to us. Then they said, well, the people that control those are at the university. It happened near the med center. I go to the university. She pretends like she's a cop, and they give us the footage. And sure enough, so that's going back to what Roscoe's telling you. If they get all this footage, they make it impossible for you to get it, but they have ability to get the footage very easily, and they tend not to give you that. That's the crazy part. Because that's how they sold us on it. Somebody stealing a car accident. That's how they sold you on putting that shit up, putting them cameras up. People for years fought against that shit. But so it's just crazy. Whenever you need that footage, it's an arm and a leg to get that shit. You have to jump through all kinds of hoops.
Yeah,
so
but that's done to dissuade you.
yeah,
That's done to like knock you off the case.
yeah, no, 100. But it's just crazy. That's when we were kids and they first talked about that shit, putting cameras everywhere. That was a thing. Like, they keep telling you it takes care of crime, it takes care of this, it takes care of that. But then when you need it for those things, you can't even get it. So that lets you know those cameras are there for other reasons.
No, that camera is there for a protected class. That is not it is not meant for use. It's not this thing is not democratic at all.
No. But also Roscoe was telling you about, so you got 95 ring cameras in a neighborhood of 300 people now. Before, that shit was unheard of. But so now they're tracking your movements. And when I say tracking your movements, literally, this license plate's past this point. This license plate's past this point. So it makes it damn near impossible for you to have any privacy. So trust me. There's all kinds of hacks and glitches with Google where they can get into those cameras, and people. How about these nerds? I know you're going in the house, so I don't want to jump the gun. But how many of these nerds are activating your cam on your computer, watching you undress and do goofy shit?
There's ways to protect your car from being hacked. You can update the car's software and firmware to ensure you have the latest security. You can use a Faraday bag to store your key fob in to block signals and prevent interception. You can limit wireless connectivity, disable all the wireless features, and limit connectivity to reduce attack surface. You can use secure protocols, ensure that the car's systems use secure communication protocols such as encryption to protect against hacking attempts. So this is what I suggest to everybody. Basically, you need to stop trying to use your car like a computer. You need to stop hooking your phone up. This is the problem. When you hook your phone up to your computer with a cable that can send data to it, it's going to collect information. What do I mean? So when I would rent a car, I would get a USB thumb drive and I would have preloaded music on there. And I would just plug in this USB thumb drive, and the only thing on there is music. So I'm using the computer in the car to play music on this USB thumb drive. I'm not using it for GPS. I'm not using it to make phone calls. The problem is, as soon as you start making phone calls with your phone through your car, it can see all of your contact information and it's stored in the car's computer that you
Oh,
cannot access. Another
that's crazy.
problem is that these cars are actually recording your data. And if it's connected to this OnStar system or an automobile manufacturer's network, it is recording where you're going and then trying to find ways to target information about you. This data mining. The auto manufacturers are data mining also. So if it sees you drive by a car wash all the time, don't be surprised if you start getting coupons from that car wash, even though you've never been to there, even though you don't even live near there. And like, wow, that's weird. It's because all of your trip information is being stored by these cars. Now, can you turn these on and off? Yes, but not through the dashboard in your car. You have to take the dashboard off. You have to take the computer out physically from the car and you have to hook it up to a port that is then hooked up to a laptop. And then you can do all the manual changes there. But you cannot access this from the dashboard in the car. This is fucking insane. So, what I'm telling you is that your who you call and um, your your stored information in your phone is being accessed because nobody reads disclaimers. Whenever you plug in an Android phone or an iPhone into a car, these new cars, it asks you, hey, could you please download the Android app to use this phone? Hold on a second. I should be able to just plug this in and use this phone
Just
like
for
a
music.
USB device. Now, it up until about 3 years ago, you could do that. And so that's why I would just carry around this thumb drive with music on it. Because, like, I'm in this city and there's probably nothing on the radio I want to listen to. I'm going to keep listening to with my enjoyment, my playlist. So, what's happening in your car is that and if you have an electric car, you have two things going on. You have a data mining operation and you have a dirty electricity factory that you're riding around. And God forbid you're laying in that car while it's charging, you idiot.
Hey, hold it. So you talking about electric cars? I sent you an article where they basically call Elon Musk a freaking megalomaniacal maniac. He's a supervillain. And we said this. Me and you have already said this on the podcast about Bill Gates. He is a supervillain. Well, they said the same thing about Elon. He said, but we're sleeping on Elon for some reason. He said so right now for him to charge he owns the charging network for all these cars. He owns the software for the cars. He owns a social network that basically will start giving you a social grade. All the shit we worry about in China, he's already doing over here. Even though he's always pointing at China. China's bad, China's bad. He's already lined that shit up. So at some point, if you have a Tesla, he can shut your car off. He can track your movements. He can make you okay. If you piss me off and say something on Twitter or /X that I don't like, now you can't charge your vehicle on my network. He's literally doing all this stuff.
What he is he's the Sam Walton of modern day technology. This guy is the Walmart of conventional, everyday electronic products, which are
Oh
now
yeah.
your car
Hmm.
and the people that you talk to on the social media platform, and you know the energy grid and the mode of transportation that's going into space.
Hold
All
it.
of
Don't
these
forget the
different
Neuralink.
things, and no, no, no,
Let's
no,
not
no,
forget the
and
Neuralink.
now robots that will be in people's homes, and you will see them walking down the street. Now, of course, all you sci-fi heads will hear this and think, "Oh, well, it's cool to have robots. That's great." Blah 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 blah. We've all seen the best and worst case scenarios in science fiction.
Look,
Okay.
when you were a little kid, we all wanted robots. We tried to build robots out of cardboard, wood, or metal. We tried it. It's a funny concept. It's
No,
something
there
that
was a
you grew up.
robot in 1985 that you could get in through the Sharper Image catalog or some of like
Yep,
more
yep.
higher end catalogs. It was about 2.5 feet tall, and all it was like just basically like a Roomba, where like that vacuum.
Yeah.
But you would just
Like a
put drinks
box
on it, and then you would use it by
and
remote
bring it to you.
control, and it would bring you a drink. That's it. That's all it was. Now these robots are going to be something different. But let's stick with the cars for a second, because these cars are something that everybody needs to make money and, to get around in your life. They're essential. Cars are essential. This is not that bullshit. Let's skip right to it. Like, cars are essential. And so with cars being essential, it's another entry point into your life. This is another attack point into your life. Now, this episode is called This is a Test because everything that we're mentioning is a test. It is a test of your intelligence level, of how determined you are to keep your freedom and your rights. And each and every fucking thing that I'm mentioning in this episode is just chipping away at personal freedoms. And you're like, oh, how can this be true? You're not fucking listening. If you are disputing that point right there, you have not been listening to anything that we've been saying for the past 28 minutes.
Well, it's hard for people to understand that these behaviors have been going on for over 120 years. We didn't understand that this was a big plan, and that the plan started with your diet, with your health care. When the Carnegies and Fords and them, they took over the healthcare system. They took over the education system with the textbooks and the education. You had to belong to the ADA, American Medical Association, all this other crazy shit. And so what we're saying, when you produce your own food, they couldn't do shit to you. You knew exactly what cow you were eating. You knew Bessie's name. Her name was Flower or Lily, and you harvested that. And when you grew the food in your backyard, you harvested that. But now, when they tell you that you need all these different things, that you need a glyphosate to kill the weeds and the shit like that, next you know, that shit's causing cancer. And this is more recent. Let's go back to, I'm going to give an example. We grew up with baby powder. Mom told you put baby powder so you don't smell and all this other stuff. That shit had talc in it, which was causing cancer way back then. Now, why is that? That shit wasn't necessary. They produced a product that didn't have that. But why? Because they knew back then we were creating customers. If we make you sick on purpose, you got to come to our medical facility to get treated. Now, before that, we had to get rid of all the homeopathic natural doctors and the natural remedies. Prime example. When I was in the Boy Scouts, what did they tell you? They told you mistletoe. That's the shit that you stand in the mistletoe, you kiss somebody. They told you that those white berries had cyanide with them, and you never eat them berries. But if you look at these old books and these Native American cures come from Canada, the First Nations people, they use the berries off of mistletoe to cure cancer. Look that shit up. It has that B17 and that laetrile in there.
All right, cool. Listen. Social media, credentials, your passwords, and important information, they are captured by people who can just sweep this information up. These credentials are another door into your personal or business life. Your internet usage, which is where you're going and how you're accessing the internet. Are you using a VPN to protect yourself or not? Then your internet router. Your internet router can be attacked. All these different entry points, your method of going online or your route you're using to go online, all these things can be attacked and manipulated. Your email, the keystrokes, program that these hackers make, it records the keystrokes. So then it can tell what you're typing without being there.
Tells you how you log in. Yeah, we had that shit at work.
Mm-hmm.
They were using it for us at work.
Exactly. So you have all these different ways that these things are being recorded, stealing your information. Now we're inside the house. So we're talking about things like your remote control for your television, the infrared remote control, which, like your garage door opener, has a certain frequency. And this frequency can be recorded and then manipulated outside of your house. So then as people can walk up to your house, open the garage door. They're inside the house.
No,
they can.
Okay.
No. I'm going to tell you how this should go down, because what can happen is they can turn off the Ring doorbell camera before they get to you. So now that it's rolling up old school style, incognito to your front door, boop, 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 they send the signal to the garage door. They go right in through the garage door.
It's not even breaking and entering. They're not even breaking in.
Oh, it is. It is. And I mean, but it's not in the way that you think. It's not a brute strength
Yeah,
break
yeah.
in.
It's not. They're not kicking in the door. They're not breaking any glass. And you come home and your house looks normal. Then you
They
walk
have
inside, everything
stolen the
gone.
keys. What they've done is stolen the
Yes.
keys to get into your house. Now, inside the house, you have smart speakers. Everybody
Mm.
want to talk to Alexa. They want to talk to some artificial intelligence speaker and record information and don't understand that that smart speaker, that Google Nest smart thermostat that's in the wall is recording conversations. It's recording the temperature that you set your house at 365 days a year. It's recording this and sending it through the internet to third party companies that buy your data.
Hey,
Now,
Roscoe.
hold on, I'm not done. So you have all these things in your house where now we're standing in the kitchen and we can look at the refrigerator, which has a camera. The refrigerator has a camera pointing inside because they are creating lazy ass people who don't want to open the door. Oh, it's going to use electricity. Motherfucker, that little tiny ass draw of wattage doesn't do anything.
No, don't
So,
stand there for 5 minutes, asshole.
but we're
That's what
trying to figure out, other ways to put cameras inside your house. And another one of those is your television. Now, you got
which
to look
watches you got,
around and
watches you
see
got.
where are the entry points on your fucking television. Well, number one is a microphone. So you got to figure out where in your television that microphone is. And if you're savvy enough, you can open it and take that out, or you can disable it. But it'll tell you in the manual that this television records conversations. So another way around that is to get a dumb TV. You don't want a smart TV, you want a dumb TV. And I'm talking
The
about
cheaper,
one
the
that
cheaper, the
can't
better.
even connect to the internet. I'm talking about a TV that is super ass basic. And you're like, oh, I gotta have the best. No, you
It's
don't,
just a
because the
screen.
best is
It's
fucking
just
you.
a screen. Just a
And
screen.
no, what people don't realize is since 2005, when the HD TV standard became the norm, is that everybody began watching TVs on computer monitors. And once you
Yes.
go from a standard TV to a computer monitor can be used as a computer. It can be used to record information. So people don't understand that you have all these appliances around your house. Anytime there's something that says smart or I in the front of the name of the appliance, throw that shit away or do not buy it to begin with, because it is something that is going to be used against you, can be used against you. It's infringing on your privacy. There's no reason why my washer and dryer needs to be hooked up to the internet. There's
Needs my
no
DNA.
fucking reason why explain to me, what good is it for my washer and dryer to be hooked up to the internet? Because you ain't about to come over here and fix shit right now. You know what I'm saying? You ain't about to come over and fix this shit tomorrow. So I just got this big ass box that washes my clothes that snitches on me.
Hey, hold it, Roscoe. Oh, me and you talked about this on a past podcast. So, did you hear about this guy where a Tesla lost control and hit his house? And he said that motherfucking tow truck showed up in 15 minutes.
Yeah, we talked about this before.
Yeah, but that's a prime example. That's the shit they use to sell you on. Well, we can know that your shit is malfunctioning before you do, and we can say you're not sending nobody out. That's bullshit. Look, so on a personal note, I had a problem with the bank the other day, right? And so I had to call them.
Mercury retrograde.
No, 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 no. It gets worse. So I called them, and I get through the customer service, and they said, use your voice to say this. Your voice is your password. How did they get my voice? I've never called this number before. And so I say this statement, and they said, you are who you say you are. And that was, I didn't have to know 87 whatever, nothing. So what they used was either a past recording of my voice from when I called in and gave my account number or whatever. But your voice is your password. You don't have to type anything in. So I'm like, that right there, I was like, oh my God, this is fucking the computers taking over. So again, how they get a copy of my voice? Is it simply from me calling in? They didn't tell me they would do that. It's all kinds of creepy for about 5 seconds. I'm focused on something else because, like I said, what I was calling for. But basically what we're telling you is that they're creating different entry points into your life, and we're giving them to them based on convenience, or that we want to be the first techie this and we want to be that. And now all of a sudden you don't realize your house ain't yours anymore. The computers run your house, the robots run your house. You're not in control anymore. And people in this data mining thing, Roscoe's telling you the truth. Why do you need this much data on anybody? Because literally you can't do anything with it, or can you? So if your data is that important, that tells you that this shit is, look, nobody should have access to your home but you. And now everybody has access to your home.
Here's another reason why the Wi-Fi situation can be really bad, because if you have a Wi-Fi router on, it can be used to create a visual electronic image of what is inside your house.
They can see your furniture. They can see where you're standing. Oh my God, yes. Keep going.
So this has been done at MIT in the past 4 years, where they created an image. They created an image of what was in the house by using the AI signal to create a background image and use the background noise to see what is moving and what is static inside of a house. And then they can identify how many people are inside of a room. So they don't need infrared. They can just use the electronic wiring in your house and Wi-Fi to determine how many people are in that damn house. Shit is wild, dude. So it's like, hold on a second. So they can look in my house whenever they want to. I'm like, yeah, unless you cut the power off. Then see, that's another thing about power outages. When you have power outages, that's when humans are truly human again. Good or bad, that's what you get. You get a real human when the lights go out. And it's so funny that I didn't really understand when I was a little boy how that stillness I would witness during a tornado warning or a tornado event, that when the lights would go out, all the power was out, and it was like the earth had like breathed this big sigh of relief. Now, recently in Omaha, they had a power outage that lasted, I think, probably like, 12 hours, maybe more. And I talked to my people there, and they told me, they were prepared, and some weren't prepared, But I was reminded of what it was like back then as a little kid experiencing that. And that was just electronics. That was the electricity and appliances. There was no internet. So imagine how deep of a sigh of relief, the earth sighs, when the power goes out. You experience this stillness because that 60 cycle hum, that 5G narrow millimeter wave is not being beamed out around everybody. And it was like, wow, this feels good. But we didn't even know that.
Some people for like 7 days. It was up to 5 to 7 days. Now, it didn't affect everybody the same way, and it took time. But there were 100,000 people without power at one point. So, but like you said, that's the whole.
How many different parts of town was that?
Oh, it literally was every part of town, mostly the north area. Those were the later ones. Our friend that stays in that by the university, he got his last. He got his like maybe that 5th, 6th day. But everybody else.
But your power was on the entire time.
Yeah. Remember, our wires are underground, so the trees couldn't fall on ours. But a lot of that shit was because trees were on stuff. Trees were taking out wires everywhere.
Or you can use the storm as cloud cover to do some sinister shit. You ever thought about that?
Look, here's what's been on my mind is the whole Maui thing and the blue roof thing. You know what I'm saying? If they got cloud cover and they're using an energy weapon, we would just attribute to the storm. We wouldn't realize that somebody is.
You need to go to the store and get some fucking blue paint, motherfucker. Get your ass on that roof.
That's the problem. When you bring that shit, I was already thinking like, man, people wouldn't know a damn thing. You know what I'm saying? If a fire broke out right now, you don't have any communication. You can't. Fire engines wouldn't know where to go. All kinds of crazy stuff could go down. And so, unfortunately, I think like that. And this is also the point we're making when like, why do they need so much information? Why do they need to know know what your pulse is at 9:45. No, look, this shit is all ways for them to corrupt your life and get you convinced that you need some more shit. You need that Apple Watch that that you put on your buttocks and it tells you, no, that's a hustle. You don't need none of that shit. Look, you weren't that active to begin with. Stop this bullshit. Stop thinking that you need some shit.
So 5G towers are all around now, and your neighbors have Wi-Fi routers that are connected to 5G internet. You have electric cars and their dirty electricity that are generated by them, and they have no EMF shielding. All these things that are transmitting or echoing repeating these signals back to you, through you, all the time. These are also entry points into your health. So before a certain time, nobody worried about electricity unless you were living under power lines. That was always a big no-no in the past.
That was the thing in the 80s.
Do not live under power lines. Aside from that, you were good. There wasn't all this energy in the atmosphere that was making people sick. But then you saw a glimpse of that in this movie called Johnny Mnemonic with Keanu Reeves. Was in it. And you saw this girl who had this sickness, and it was related to all the electromagnetic energy that was in the air. So, and she went into convulsions and had a seizure. And it kind of spoke to something that Carl Sagan talked about in his book, The Demon Haunted World, that talked about how the amount of transmissions in the air would increase over time to the point where it would saturate the environment and start to make people sick. So speaking of making people sick, now you're in the house, and inside this house, you have all these bottles of water, and they're not in glass, they're in plastic. Now, people don't realize is that some of this stuff is at the warehouse on the dock, and sun is just blasting it all day. And
for years.
It's just shredding the sides of the plastic bottle into the water in a small molecular level, right? So now you have these plastics, these microplastics that are getting into the water you're drinking, and you don't see it. You can't taste it. Well, you can kind of taste it because, like,
it tastes like shit.
The funny thing is that you can drink water out of plastic and you can drink water out of glass, and it's going to taste different. I remember when I first stopped drinking out of plastic bottles or storing my water in plastic bottles, and I switched back to glass. I was reminded of the sensation that I got when I would go and get a glass of water out of the refrigerator, or I'll pour some cold water from a glass pitcher that's sitting in the refrigerator, or even Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid out of a glass pitcher hits way different than Kool-Aid. Even back then as a kid, I could tell there was something different about something that came out of a plastic pitcher versus something that came out of a glass pitcher. The taste was different. So then, these plastics were getting into our water supply even back then. Now, here's another thing. This plastic, if you are putting hot food into a plastic bowl, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to leach into the food. If you're buying something at the store and it's in a plastic container, you're like, well, this is the best way to get it. Is it?
Okay.
Because now you know what? And you go and you buy a bag of rotisserie chicken from the fucking store. It's a hot ass. Listen, this hot ass chicken was in this plastic bag for 8 hours. What the fuck do you think is going to happen with that plastic bag? It doesn't stand a chance to get the heat against the heat, so it's going to melt into the skin of that chicken. Now, what's a short term fix for that? Peel the skin off that fucking chicken and do not eat that chicken skin because it is made of plastic now.
No. The short term fix is for you to take your own Corningware to the store, place your chicken in it, and look, the first time I saw that, I was at a Olive Garden or something. I saw white people who said, hey, put my leftovers in this. And they literally had a Corningware. But look, so just so people understand, when in the late 70s, early 80s, everything was Corningware or glass or whatever. How did they get us to switch to plastic? Do you remember? Tupperware parties. Remember Tupperware came out. That was the whole thing. You can burp it and it stays fresh longer. It was a whole freaking movement, and we're like, and we were all told like, okay, glass breaks, and you'll step on the glass, and that's how we went from glass bottles to plastic bottles when we were kids. When you were a kid, you see glass bottles on the ground, yeah, every once in a while,
Broken
but they
glass everywhere.
everywhere, and so it was a movement to get us to move to plastics. This is the reason, and this is what I meant by they're creating all these different entry points into your life. Now, Roscoe said some other deep shit. You do know this because we talked about it on past podcasts. You're not supposed to put your cell phone in your pocket. You're supposed to put your cell phone on a clip. They showed all that dirty electricity going to your nuts, going to your vital organs. You literally should have one of these clips for your cell phone. Same thing, which I didn't realize. I hate when people use a speakerphone, but the reason you use a speakerphone is literally you're not supposed to put the cell phone in your head for long periods of time.
Oh, you talking about pizza phone? People walk around holding phones.
I hate, dude. I hate it. I freaking hate it.
I don't want to hear your conversation.
But now
that DJ.
Now that I've done the research, and now that Roscoe pointed out all this different shit, they were designed that way to keep them away from your head. You're only supposed to put them to your head for a few minutes at a time. We talk on cell phones for hours at a time, like it's the old phone that we grew up with. And so what's happening is this is what we're trying to tell you. There are so many entry points into your life, whether whether you recognize it or not. Whether you realize that, hey, this is a real pain in the ass, whether you realize that it's making you sick gradually, they're poisoning you so slow. They call it a cold death. They say that's when they poison you so slow you don't realize it. And so you die by 60, and they're like, oh, damn, that was a trap. He died, right? No, you're supposed to live to 108, 110, 120. But they're gradually giving you cancer. They're gradually giving you heart disease. They're gradually giving you... Look, and here's the crazy part. And how come our relatives live to 90, 80 smoking and chewing tobacco? Now tobacco causes cancer. No, it doesn't. What it is, when they put that damn silicone in there and you chew tobacco and it cuts you a certain way, it causes you to get... They're adding these different things a little bit at a time to make you sicker. And this is the exact same thing with your house. They're giving you all these new entry points. You got to guard so many different doors now. Before you had to guard your front door, your back door, your garage. Now you got so many doors to your house, it's fucking ridiculous. And you don't realize that by the time you wake up, somebody else is running your house. That's what I've been trying to tell y'all. That's what Roscoe is telling y'all. Like, look, man, your car can fuck you. Your car is an entry point. Your car has all your data. Your car has all your family information. It also reads your text messages too. Don't forget that part. So when is enough enough?
Where do you think those are going? I mean, if it's reading your text messages, you think it's just going away, that it's stopping right there, that nobody sees that? No. Yeah. All that stuff is showing up on a screen and is being recorded somewhere because there's a computer in the car. And that computer has a hard drive in it. The Mercedes-Benz and the BMWs, they have like 300 gigabyte hard drives. What the fuck is all that for?
It's gathering your driving information. Is knowing where you go. No.
So when I look at this shit, I'm like, okay. So either I'm not going to buy any more new cars, or the cars that I buy, I have to go in and modify the car to make it safe for privacy. So I can have conversations that are discreet in this car, and it's not going anywhere outside the fucking car. Shit's wild.
No, what it is you think it's benign. You think that this is just, it's no big deal. That shit, I got a mirror in my old raggedy truck that it has Apple CarPlay on it, and I play my music like you said. But it also reads my text messages. Because when I'm driving, it'll say, pick up something, like you said, where does it go afterwards? It doesn't just disappear.
Yeah, you need to stop using that shit right now.
Like I said, as minute as it seems, like, that's not a big deal. Yes. It knows your wife's birthday and you don't. It knows your anniversary and you don't. It knows so much about you. And look, this whole hacker thing where everything can be hacked.
What's crazy is that these companies know when you're going to have a divorce 6 months before you have a divorce.
Or you do.
Based off of your habits, your communication, all these different things.
You go to that hotel 7 days a week. Yes, they know that you're cheating. The car knows where you're going. It sends everything is fucking accessible if you know how. That's not a good thing. That is not a better world. That is complete opposite. Look, we used to make fun of the old people when they complained about how things were and like where we were going. Now you're like, holy shit, I'm the old people because I'm like, no, this is not necessary. Like my kids have a Alexa, I'm like throw that shit out. Oh no, Dad, this is like no,
Mm-mm.
no,
Get rid of it.
no, no. Look, when you come to my house, we don't have it. But look, and then remember those things were like $200, then they started getting them out free. Like, how do you go from $200 to free? Somebody,
Because they need that crack from us. The
they need
crack
that.
that
They
they
need
get
the
from
entry point.
us is the data. Data is crack for them.
Well, it's not
Attention
just.
is crack for the people that have the data.
It's hold it. You're right. It's not just that, but that was a crack in that shield. That's a crack in your armor. That's how they got into your home. Like, you know what? Now we know everything about you. We know more about you than you do. That's a sick world that we live in when somebody else knows more about your habits and your behaviors and your.
But when has being nosy ever been cool? Never. Never, ever, ever. So they have mastered the art of being nosy and gotten you gaslit into thinking being nosy is good for you. That them being nosy helps you, and you being nosy helps them and helps you. That is some fifth dimensional gaslighting right there. That's some alien abduction type of gaslighting.
No, and that's just what it is. They got you thinking that hey, you the best ever, or you need this, or this is some future shit. Nope. That's some alienation shit where, you're eating spoiled milk and shit like that, getting drunk. Like, nah, man. Please just pay attention to the fact that they're paying more attention to you than you are. That's all. That's all we're saying.
But these things are essentially making people weaker because all the things that I've mentioned from the beginning of this episode, these are all things that are essentially making you weak and things that you become dependent on. When you become way too dependent on things that your robust humanity can manage on its own, you are essentially becoming a weak, coddled individual. And the food is making you weak. The plastic is making you weak. It is proven that
Hurting your DNA.
people absorb a certain amount of plastic every year, and it's making people weak. It's making men less virile, and it's hurting the testosterone production in
It,
young
it,
and
it
grown
looks like
men.
estrogen to the body. Those microplastics look like estrogen, and it behaves the same way
So
because the body takes it in.
when you get a populace like this, let's have them focused on something feminine, their feelings, because they are making more estrogen than normal. So it's feelings, not facts, that matter now. So now we've created this environment which is easier to manipulate because you're more concerned with feelings than facts. And that shit is wild. You're seeing AI being used. And see, this is another entry point. So then you have artificial intelligence that's being used in news reports now. There was a story about how Sports Illustrated was using AI to write articles. Dude, did you ever read Sports Illustrated as a kid? All I
No,
ever did was just look at the pictures. It was
yeah.
always so drab.
You didn't read it for the articles like Playboy. You saw it for the pictures. You wanted to know what the score was.
Who is this shit for? Is this for high school coaches that are trying to? Who the fuck is this for? Who is this
It was
information for?
it was written like on a third grade level, like literally. And so when you hear that, people get insulted. It's not meant to insult. It was about the pictures. It was simply about the pictures, and they threw a couple words in there just for seasoning, not for
And
substance.
so
And so
eventually they fired whole lot of their staff. You know what I'm saying? Their writing staff because they forgot, oh, we can get AI to make this shit up now because
look,
nobody's really
AI
reading
should
it
be illegal.
anyway.
Look, if I live in a small state, not a lot of people. We need to outlaw AI. There are certain jobs that AI should not be allowed to do. This writing thing is a hustle because if y'all start using AI and it takes all the jobs, how can you pay for anything? Who's going to buy your product? You're literally are killing the economy with this AI because I'd rather pay for AI once than pay employees. Well, those employees are what makes this world work. and we should be the most important thing in the world. And then you got this guy at Google. You know how many of these we've seen it. We talked about it on past podcasts. How many of these guys are quitting Google because that guy wants AI? He doesn't care how it affects people. He just wants to be the first to have it and control it. And you can't control some shit you can't control. You know what I'm saying? It's like a wildfire. I set some fire. It's a controlled burn. But when that shit catches some shit I didn't expect and it goes crazy, you will burn down the whole damn world just for the fuck of it. Just because you said you were better than everybody else or smarter than everybody else. And don't let that Elon motherfucker, that autistic motherfucker, run the world because, the funny thing is that when you say he's autistic, people are like, my son's autistic.
No, he's a genius. He's artistic.
Yeah, he's both. He's artistic and autistic. But the problem is he doesn't connect with people. That's my point. The point is the autism it has to do with communication.
So if you don't connect with people,
no problem.
Then you have no problem completely running over people with a steamroller as if they are chattel because they have no use to you.
You can't connect with them. You don't understand their experiences. You know that you're different. But
here's another thing. Like wanting to connect the entire planet with the internet, what's the point of that? Because now you have tribes people in the Amazon and all these remote locations in the world who had no access really with the outside world, and you're giving them phones now, and it's changing their demeanor to one that mimics everyday people in North America, and where people are just staring at their phones and not doing their chores and not being productive, and they become a sexual deviance. Oh, so you're just like this masturbating primate in a tree.
You're sitting here corrupting everybody. How is that any different from the devil? You are corrupting people for no reason. You are giving them temptation. You are distracting them. You're making them not complete their daily task. The work they did was how
that keeps the village going
alive. Yes, you knew what I was. And now all of a sudden, they're not doing that because they're sitting there looking at a 2-inch screen with blue light, which we're also told red light is healthier, but you're using that blue light to fuck up people's just whole mind. So yes. That's another point of entry. Your cell phone. That's another point of entry.
Okay, here's another thing. Like psychologically, if you can't sleep, don't reach for your phone. If you can't sleep, lay down on the floor and start doing some stretching. But do not try and get that. Don't use the cell phone to replace getting up and going to the refrigerator. You know what I'm saying? You shouldn't be doing either one of them. Like you shouldn't be eating in the middle of the night. That's just stupid. But also, you definitely should be looking at your phone in the middle of the night because you have to remain in this zone of rest and peace so that your body can decompress. Your body can decompress completely and recharge you. You know what I'm saying? But you can't get fully recharged if you get up in the middle of the night and look at your phone because some bots are sending you naked pictures on Instagram or Twitter. You know what I'm saying?
Trying to flirt with you.
These are bots. Like look at the messages that they send. They're super fucking thirsty. The first person to respond to this, with a dick pic and can get some nudie pictures. And I'm like, no. This account is always sending this bullshit. And I'm like, you are super thirsty because you're not a real person. You are a bot and you're data mining. You're trying to gather all this information. And so you created this account to do this. Shit is wild, dude. But people have to look through this stuff and look through these things that are fucking harmful. You know what I'm saying? Like shit is wild.
Yeah. No, there's more bullshit than grass now. And we don't understand that. So.
Well, I mean, sure. I can get with that. But the only problem is that you have to keep reminding people of this because you can tell them about, oh man, there's chemtrails and there's 9/11 and all this crazy stuff is going on with the government. 5G is bad for you. But people do not have the common sense to put these things together and see how they're connected.
No, they don't put them in context. That's very true. Because
they look at them as isolated incidents.
All these things are separate. That is exactly what it is.
But that comes from the product of compartmentalization and how people have been forced to subconsciously compartmentalize their thinking so that they can keep getting the treats from the overseer that keeps tossing them bananas so that they will jack off into this phone. You know what I'm saying? It's ridiculous.
Look, what we're trying to tell you is you are letting people into your house. You're letting people into your temple. You're letting people into your body. You're letting people, and when you do that, you are for perpetual customer. You will always be beholden to them. You will always need them. You don't need anybody but yourself, God, maybe your family. But right now, your family is what 8 billion strong because they're all into in your shit.
But this is the thing. So over time, I keep seeing a reoccurring theme of simplify, simplify. Not make things more complex, but make them more simple. Because if I look at my problems as simple, I can solve them faster. If there's something that's complex, well, make it simple. Because most times it doesn't need to be complex. And if it needs to be complex, the more complex it is, it's more prone to invasion or co-opting from somebody on the outside. And
corruption. There's more corruption, like bureaucracy. The more layers of bureaucracy you have, the more corruption you have. The more people in your business, the more corrupt it is. It's just that simple.
Yep. And so with these problems, you have to figure out like, all right, these things that are creating chaos in my life, I have to remove them. So I have to make the problem simple. And by doing that, it makes it easier to eliminate. Do you or do you not need this? Bottom line. That's all I got. We out. Peace.
You'll holler back.